Welcome on into Daggerheart characters. Today, we're going to be doing a main character. If I know I released a Mystique video already, and I've recorded a Rogue video that may or may not come out prior to the Batman video here, but this is the first time where we're doing a main character. I thought it'd be kind of fun. I thought, yeah, Batman should be easy enough to build. Now, I went into it thinking I would mess around with things a little bit more, but no, this is totally a build that you can do. You don't need to get any kind of okay from your GM for anything here. We're going by the book, creating Batman out of the gate. I am going to say, because he is so varied in his abilities in some senses, in terms of the actual domain cards and everything that you're taking and some of the decisions that we're going to be making for, at leveling up, there are a lot of different ways that you could take this. I'm taking this, I suppose, in a little bit more of a grounded Batman way, in the sense that he's definitely totally a human who is able to be beaten up. You look at those hit points, I only have 7 hit point slots in this build. This is also something where, as you're playing the character, you might say, yeah, I'm having to fight in close range. I'm too close to the fight for only 7 hit points. It's just not working for me. This is, I'm not beefy enough. I'm falling at every step of the way here. So then you wouldn't follow exactly what I have. As always, I will post my little cheat sheet as to the decisions that I made along the way up for you in a Google document that you have a link to up in the description. So without that, let's just begin looking at Batman for this build. Primary character powers that I just kind of went into this with are going to be like the fact that he's a martial artist. I will say, because this is a rogue to begin with, we don't get to fully live out all of the martial artists, but we do multi-class. You can make a different decision at multi-class into than I did, but as a part of that multi-class, we are going to get some abilities that can, I think, be, at the very least, flavored to some elements of his martial arts abilities. He's also very intelligent, and he has good detective abilities. I'm leaning into a little bit more of that Batman. That's the other thing here. There are a lot of different versions, variations of Batman. Because he's so popular, there are so many different comic books and movies out there. They're all different. And I think also, as you play this Batman, you could obviously make your own version of Batman. Exactly, where his strengths and weaknesses lie would just depend upon, that extra flavor that you're adding into him, making him your own Batman, or her, your own Batman woman. So that's, I think the fun here. I also have tracking listed as something that I was interested in getting. We will not get that, so you can see in my experiences, I did put Expert Tracker as my 4th experience. I thought maybe we would be able to get something when we multiclass into Ranger for tracking, but it just doesn't really work out that way. There's not enough Sage domain cards, and the Bone domain cards give us some more martial ability that we just had to go that route when we made that choice for what domain cards we get access to when we multiclassed. And then I added Detective into the experiences here as well. It's like I have a tool for that, and sorry about that. And Butler Ally, I think something where we can just get a boost to some things where maybe we could have phoned in our butler in essence. He is very much Batman's right-hand man in a lot of cases, doing research for him, just being there for him. So those were the routes that I went for the experiences. Did not invest in this experiences as far as boosting them. When we get to use them, absolutely fantastic, and hopefully the boost will be big enough of a boon to get us over the hump. And then I did I say gadgets? I also listed gadgets, which once again kind of used our experience to hopefully, with a little bit of GM working with us, we'll be able to use that effectively a few times throughout the campaign. Of course, beyond that, he is basically superhuman, at least enough variations of him, so can't forget about that But ultimately, as you can see with like my -1 strength, I mean, obviously Batman is quite strong. Had to make some decisions, some sacrifices along the way to try and balance getting a little bit more stress, because that's something that we definitely needed in some instances in order to do the things that we want to do. So that's just the route that I went. So same thing here with your presence, your instinct, your agility, your strength, your knowledge if you wanted to go a different route. Remember, I'm kind of going like the detective route, so this knowledge, I'm going with the really smart fighter. So we're going to have to play that to its full extreme, too. But once again, 7 hit point slots is all we have, so we're going to be tactical. And there is a card from the Bone Domain that this knowledge boost will help this to be a little bit more tactical. So I do have +3 to the evasion. The base evasion score here is 15. I invested in all 3, upgrades while leveling up to the evasion. Base for Rogue is 12, and then we have a +2 from our Rogue Hope feature that we're very regularly going to be adding that in, as well as a +1 from one of our domain cards while we're in low lights types of situations. So outside of that, we'll look at let me go through the ancestry choices, those types of things. As you can see up here, I am a highborn fawn. So I felt like highborn is 100% who Batman is. He does come from a rich, wealthy family, so he is highborn. And because of that, so let me rephrase this. Because of that, and because of a lack of going with some cards that could have boosted our evasion even more with this agility from the Bone Domain, you probably know what I'm talking about, I ended up investing in presence, getting it up to a +3 instead of agility. But I'll say up front, once again, you could take these traits in different routes depending on what kind of cards you want to take, depending on exactly what you do when you multi-class, depending on the vision that you have for this version of Batman. But because I think you have to go highborn if you're going Batman, personally. But you could make up reasons for another route. The presence bonus will help with that advantage that we get when working with nobles, when negotiating with, I think it's for prices or something like that. Some of those boosts will be presence rolls. So I figured we might as well go all in on that. Almost all in on that. So that's the reason for the +3 presence. I'm not really thinking I'm like a super outgoing Batman, but I guess, when he's not Batman, some versions of him, probably a lot of them, probably his original version, are quite outgoing anyway, so it works fine. We've got our regular 6 armor slots, and the reason that I chose Fawn is going to be at the bottom here. You get this Caprine Leap, so you can leap anywhere within close range as though you were using normal movement, allowing you to vault obstacles, jump across gaps, and scale barriers with ease. That felt very Batman to me. And then this not only feels Batman, like I feel his acrobatic moves are a huge part of who he is. So this will give us a little extra damage. On top of our other extra damages, this will give us that flavor, and it's going to give us some nice mechanical ability to help to keep some separation between us and our adversaries. So when you succeed on an attack against a target within melee range, you can mark a stress to kick yourself off of them, dealing an extra 2d6 damage and knocking back either yourself or the target to very close range. So once again, in some situations, this could be the difference between getting out alive or not, especially for those types of creatures who do have what is that when you try to get out of their range and they can attack you in D&D that has a name. So not all creatures have that in here. We're going to try to stick out of melee range a lot of the time, but I'm sure we'll be in it enough too. I guess that brings us to our gear. So when we look at our gear, torch, soft rope, basic supplies always come. Our returning blade. What is more Batman than having a returning blade? So that is going to be our weapon, and as you'll see, we're going to stick with that as our primary weapon as well. We're just going to upgrade to a better returning blade later on. And then I took a small dagger with that to start out with, just making us a little bit more deadly when we strike early on, and had the Gambeson armor as well, which was boosting up our evasion earlier on as well. And then, of course, I took the grappling hook as my class item because it's Batman. Of course, he's going to have a grappling hook. Now, on to the decisions that I made. So at Tier 2, I went with the Parrying Dagger. This is going to go a long ways towards helping to get the most out of our hit points. This gives us a little bit of a way to reduce incoming damage, potentially, pretty drastically at times, potentially even nullifying damage, technically. It is possible that that could be the case. So our Parrying Dagger is going to go a long ways and always be at our side. And then, like I said, I got the Advanced Returning Blade. I upgraded to a better Returning Blade a little bit later on. That was my Tier 3 choice. Depending on how things are going, if you're remaining deadly enough, but you are struggling to stay alive, you could have also gone with Advanced Gambison Armor at this junction if you get any kind of decision into this. I know you may not actually get this kind of decision with your character, but these are kind of, the best case scenarios, but also just a limited selection here. At Tier 4, I'm just adding one at each tier. At Tier 4, I went with the Ember Woven Armor. This is a nice strong armor. It's not going to give us a boost to our evasion, but what it is going to do is going to stress attackers, and we have a lot of ways that we're going to be forcing our adversaries to be marking stress. So this is hopefully going to compound to really start to eat away at our adversaries' abilities that they can do, as well as preventing that, as well as starting to eat away at their hit points even. So when an adversary attacks you within melee range, they're going to have to mark a stress. So just going to make it a little less appetizing to attack us, make adversaries think twice about doing it again after the first time that they do that. So those are the weapon decisions, armor decisions. That ends up giving me a 23 major damage threshold, 46 severe damage threshold. So those are acceptable numbers there, not extremely low at least. Our stress, we got 10 stress. Went back and forth a bunch of times between getting this extra proficiency or not, but there are some synergies of having this extra proficiency, including that Parrying Dagger. That's going to give us one more damage die that we can roll by having that proficiency. And that proficiency I did not get until 10th level. Of course, you could have moved that up a little bit earlier. Once again, if you want to see the decisions that I made, go right ahead, check out that document that you have access to in the description. I went through these experiences. I think we've gone through everything here, so it's just kind of time to we'll look at the features that we get along the way, some of the decisions that I made for subclass, as well as you'll start to see some of the synergies that occur. So obviously we get better dodge with our rogue's dodge. That's a very nice feature. Until we're hit, we get that each rest. We can spend 3 hope to get that done. We have our cloaked ability, which is going to be just an advanced hidden, which is obviously going to help our survivability, and it helps us to get off our sneak damage, which is going to help us boost up our damage. And we do get a benefit, which is going to be the benefit of forcing our adversaries to mark a stress when we deal severe damage to them. So all of these little damage boosts are hopefully going to help us to hit severe damage more often as well. When I multi-classed, I went with the Ranger, once again thinking about those tracking abilities potentially, as well as some of the martial abilities that we end up going for with the Bone Domain, but also once again, we're gonna set our focus on a target, and we're gonna be strategic with how we do things. And one of the benefits here is that when we deal any type of damage, we're gonna be forcing our adversary, our focus, to mark stress. We can also end this and re-roll when we miss a target, or if they're trying to get away from us, we know what direction that they're going in. So lots of benefits to this Ranger focus that I think are, fairly Batman. It's pretty hard to get away from Batman. This goes right along with the tracking. This goes right along with the detective abilities, even if you want to flavor it like that while you're trying to track someone. So, a lot of, I think that it made sense to go Ranger. And then, obviously we do have a spellcast rate. It's our finesse. That's why finesse was our highest thing. The thing is, I wanted to kind of avoid going with spellcast items, but we can just flavor these things. Like right over there, you look at Veil of Night. this creates a curtain of darkness between 2 points within far range. It helps you to get off your extra damage and helps you to remain hidden, which makes you harder to hit from your opponents and gives you advantage on those strikes. But the thing here is you can just play this off as throwing a grenade, and some of them are duds, So you make your spellcast roll, you throw the grenade, or maybe you throw it into the wrong area and it's effectiveless. You throw it too far, or whatever, and it doesn't have any kind of impact on the current fight when you fail this spellcast roll. So you can really flavor any of these to not necessarily be spells. I think that's kind of how the rogue was built. But because it has the Grace domain, which has spells, I guess they had the luxury to just call them spells instead of something else. So the other thing here is we're going to get that Shadow Stepper, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. It uses our stress, but we did get 10 stress, and a Shadow Stepper is going to go a long ways towards keeping us alive, getting us into good positions, being strategic, all that good stuff. And then for the subclass decision that I made for the Ranger, we went with a Wayfinder Ranger. Spellcast is Agility, but we went with Bone Domain. I don't think we have any spells that we have to worry about casting. That is something we'll have to, we didn't go with Sage, so Bone Domain doesn't have any spell cast. So yeah, we're good there. I had to double think about that one. This gives us Ruthless Predator, which is going to allow us against those bigger, beefier, more armored allies to get another proficiency in there in order to hopefully help deal severe damage, which here it is when you deal severe damage to an adversary, they must mark a stress. So once again, going to be really stressing our allies, which I think works a lot with the flavor of Batman. Like when Batman shows up on the scene, everybody but the Joker basically gets a little bit scared about what could potentially happen. We get a little bit of our tracking here with the Path Forward little bonus subclass ability. And when I did upgrade a subclass here, you definitely don't have to, especially if you want, more hit points there and stuff like that. But I did it just to give myself a little bit more evasion. I really don't want to get hit, so we're going to put the focus on the biggest, baddest guy on the map, usually, and that's the one we're most afraid of hitting us. So this extra evasion is going to be very helpful. Hopefully get us up to 19 or 20 going into the fight to begin with, and then once we are hit, going to keep us a little bit more evasive anyways. Outside of that, what was the other thing we consort with nobles, negotiate prices, and leverage your reputation to get what you want, which obviously is something that you see Bruce Wayne do at times. I couldn't think of his name earlier, so I avoided saying it. All right, that is going to bring us on to the decisions that I made for the cards. Of course, Vanishing Dodge, very Batman. He does that all the time to his foes. But we are going to be more of the Detective-y Batman, and honestly, out of the early first level card selections, if you really want to stay within true Batman, I don't think that the Rogue has the best Batman decisions early on, but pick and pull going to work very well. Same with Rain of Blades, going to give us a little bit of ability to fight against a crowd early on, help disperse the crowd hopefully, or just down it a little bit quicker. Then at second level, I went with Tell No Lies. That's our detective ability coming in there. Somebody's not going to be able to lie against us. I don't know why this isn't opening up as I press down on them. It's supposed to, but it's not. At third level, I went with Veil of Night, which we still have out here in our loadout. Talked about that one already. So that's going to be kind of our smoke bomb. And then Stealth Expertise at fourth level, which I do not have in. Nice zero stress card, so we can pull it out when we need to use it in order to be more stealthy. Very much Batman in the wheelhouse there. Then at fifth level, I multi-classed, as you saw. Oh, there we go. It finally happens. And I multi-classed, grabbed the Bone Domain, went with the Wayfinder Foundation there for the Ranger class, and I grabbed Strategic Approach. This was what we were building up our knowledge for. Strategic Approach gives us an amount of tokens equal to our knowledge. on the card. Why is it doing that? That's obnoxious. And the first time that you move within close range of an adversary, make an attack roll against them, you can spend 1 token to choose whether you want to get advantage on the attack. We have like 3 different ways that we're getting advantages or boosts to our attacks. You clear stress within an ally within melee range. They just feel relieved that we are entering the fray. They're happy to see us. Or you can add a D8 to your damage roll, so another way to increase that damage to help with some of those, help hit harder never hurts, especially with this build. We get some benefits from that as well. So that's definitely like a key focus card that I was always going to be grabbing for this build that I went with for Batman. Then at 6th level, I got Deft Maneuvers, a 0 stress way to get out of a situation, especially during the day. If there's no shadows around or something like that, that would be huge. It also gives us a benefit to be more reliable when we move within melee range, if that's how we choose to use it, once per rest. So that's, I should not have clicked that. So that's going to be a nice card. It's not a mandatory card, I would say. At this point, we're kind of more into, depending on what you are thinking that you need. But at 7th level, we did grab Vanishing Dodge, which is a must-have with this build. Vanishing Dodge, when an opponent misses you, you can spend a hope to be hidden, which means that you are going to be cloaked at a point within close range of the attacker, which is going to help you to either get away if you really need to, or proc your sneak damage dice. So obviously a very, very good tool to have and very Batman-y. Shadow Hunter at 8th level, which is going to give us that little extra boost that I have currently going on. Also gives us advantage on our attack rolls here as well. Like I said, multiple ways to get advantages, but +1 to our evasion while we're in low light or darkness. Man, this site is acting funny, or my computer is acting funny right now. And then at 9th level, here's where you're really going to get some choices. If you want to maybe expand your tool belt or make yourself even harder to hit if you're finding yourself to be a little bit too squishy, because you did remain with like the 7 hit points that I have built this character out with. There are some other options from the Bone Domain, like I See It Coming, Untouchable. A signature move can help regain some stress for you as well. So those are the other cards that I would say maybe you think about taking here at 9th level and or at 10th level, including one of the cards that I grab at 10th level. So there are a lot of decisions late that you could choose. But ultimately, I really only ever thought of one Grace Domain card. You could argue for some other ones, and especially if you want to flavor your Batman in some different ways as you play him further along with your campaign, maybe some of them would make sense more. But at 9th level, I did end up going for the big one, and originally I did not take Night Terror, but then I came back and decided I would take it. And part of the reason I didn't want it was it cost 2 stress to pull out of our vault, and I really want to watch our stress to be able to use it for all of the great things that it does allow us to do. But Night Terror is great flavor, and it is a way to really gimp our GM potentially, and it is a way to help disperse a crowd even better than our earlier Rain of Blades ability. So ultimately, I gave in and I went for it. But once again, there are arguments for not taking Night Terror. But the flavor of Batman showing up on the scene and a bunch of criminals immediately kind of being horrified that Batman has shown up and is going to make their day a bad day is very much something that is in the Batman comics, etc. So I ended up going that route. I figured having one of these high-level abilities would probably be pretty nice. And hopefully we very rarely, if ever, are actually paying that 2 stress to pull it out of our vault. Instead, we're replacing it once we've used it once per long rest with something else, or we're putting it in during a short rest or something like that. Outside of that, at 10th level, I went with Redirect. That also feels quite Batman. It's, it is what it says. It is Redirect. You can move damage from one person trying to attack you onto a different within a certain range is all that it does. And so, once again, definitely not mandatory to have that as an option, and having, an I See It Coming where you can increase your evasion, which is going to help you to stay more evasive in the long term because you lose your rogue hope extra evasion once you have been hit would make plenty of sense, as well as helping to keep your hit points intact, etc. So I think that is going to be it for this build. I will see you with the next one. Thank you very much. I hope you liked it. Is this the kind of... What do you think? I know there's a lot of different routes you could go with this Batman. Is this an appropriate route, do you think? Do you think he's too weak here between the strength and the hit points? Did I screw up there? Thank you very much. Bye-bye.